Pair those two, especially when they're from different eras. That's going to be a great conversation for a different podcast. Justin, that's it for the Raptors and the Cavs. I think our listeners are done listening to me talk about LeBron James, but we talked about DeMar DeRozan disappearing in that Raptors series. So, Justin, as you start to lead us into the Sixers versus the Celtics, can you at least answer for me, where in the world is Markelle Fultz, and why has the coaching staff disappeared him from that lineup?
I have no idea. I don't understand the point of bringing him back into the end of the regular season and then not giving him any minutes in these playoffs. It makes zero sense. Now, they've actually finally started to play TJ McConnell, who they should have played more in games 2 and 3, and they didn't, and they made coaching error after coaching error in those games. I have no idea what's going on with Fultz, and it looks awful because the guy that they took him over, Jason Tatum, is lighting them up. I mean, when you look at it, Eric, there was 2 moves in this draft that drive me crazy. You saw on Tuesday night, Donovan Mitchell go crazy in the third quarter. He had 22 points. He's been right up there in the Rookie of the Year conversation, and people forget that Donovan Mitchell was actually drafted by the Denver Nuggets and then traded to the Utah Jazz for Trey Lyles. And then the same draft, you had the Philly trade where Philly basically swaps a high first-round pick to go up from 3-1 to get Markelle Fultz. Celtics dropped back to 3, knowing the Lakers were going to take Lonzo Ball, and they got the guy they wanted anyways in Jason Tatum. So when you look at those, what was the bigger move that makes you scratch your head and think is the worst move? The Fultz trade or Nuggets trading Mitchell?
Well, and like you always say, recency bias is important when we look at these things, and it kind of gives us a lot of subjectivity. Mitchell is going to be unbelievable in this league. I really think that. I mean, he played on a Utah team that a lot of people didn't feel were going to do a whole lot. I know that as of last night, they were put away by the Houston Rockets 4-1, and that doesn't look so good after they played such a great series in round 1. But you look at the growth of a player, you look at the fact that he's a rookie, and you look at what his potential is, I think his ceiling is really, really high. Now, Tatum, on the other hand, has sort of a similar role in the fact that Kyrie and Hayward were not playing, and so he had to rise to superstar status really, really quickly. And I got to tell you, watching, of course, all the Sixers playoff games, and so watching this Boston versus Philly series, I've got to see a lot of Tatum. I think the guy is really impressive. So the fact that they're playing 2 different positions kind of helps. I think the fact that when we're comparing them and we're looking at what they're going to do and what their role is going to be on their prospective teams throughout their careers, I think Tatum is a guy that reminds me a lot of, I don't want to say LeBron James, but a guy who can play sort of a lot of different areas on the floor like a LeBron James. He can shoot the ball.
He's almost like a better shooting Scottie Pippen.
That's right. Well,
like athletic, can play D.
Yeah,
that's what I kind of think of him as.
He can shoot the ball. He can play inside, and he can throw down some monstrous dunks. And I think he's just shown me a lot in this series as far as effort and will to win. But I mean, Mitchell showed a lot of will to win in that first round series as well. So if I'm either team, I'm pretty happy, honestly, Justin.
I mean, if you're Denver, though, you've got to be pretty unhappy.
Oh,
when
Denver,
you see
yeah.
Mitchell
I'm sorry,
come out
I thought you meant the Jazz, but yeah, Denver. Oh gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Philly, I mean, they gave up a pick to get Fultz.
I'm sorry, yeah, I approached that from the wrong angle. Yeah, I mean, if you're Denver or Philly, you got to feel like, what did we do?
Yeah, I mean, and both of them, I think that they're probably equally disappointed in themselves. And what I don't understand about the Philly trade is the NBA is going to more wings. Okay. They already had in their mind that they wanted to go get J.J. Redick. So you've got Simmons at the point. You'd have Redick at shooting guard. Why then wouldn't you just take Tatum or stay put at 3 and see if Fultz falls to you at that point, or go to 1 and get Tatum? That's what confuses me is they already had Simmons. They talked about wanting to play him at point. What were they bringing Markelle Fultz in to do after the J.J. Redick signing? Nothing made sense about that deal. And like you said, now they're not even playing him. And look, Ben Simmons has not been very good in this Boston series.
He's been exposed a lot for his shooting.
Yeah, Boston has looked at what we've talked about all year with him. He doesn't shoot the ball outside of the paint. He just doesn't. He's not comfortable with his jump shot. He's great inside, but Boston basically is just packing it in and daring him to shoot the ball, and he's not doing it. What gets me about him, Eric, is all season long, defensively, he was pretty good. I think he was in like the top 10 in defensive rating individually for the regular season, and he's fallen into the 60s into the playoffs. But just the sloppiness of his game and sort of the laziness and this laissez-faire sort of attitude. I mean, that pass that he had to Embiid late in game 3 was just awful. I mean, he like lollipopped it to him. He let the defender come around and make a clean swipe. Like, you've got to throw a better pass than that in that situation. I was just really disappointed in Ben Simmons, the way he's played now. He played a lot better in game 4, a lot more aggressive. Defensively, he was sort of back to the level he was in the regular season. But I tell you that, watching him then versus how good he played and how hard he played when they played the Cavaliers, I think the second to the last game of the regular season, he just looked like a different guy then. He looked like he played with a different speed, a different gear, and he gets to the playoffs in games 1 through 3, Eric. He was just awful. I mean, his plus minus, he was like a minus 55 on the court. And you looked at how good TJ McConnell played and the fact that even in game 2, Brett Brown was basically left Ben Simmons out to the 5-minute mark. And as soon as they put Simmons in, Boston went on a 17-10 run to win that game. So Philly is down 3-1. But you look at the games and the mistakes that was made. Philly should have won game 2. They should have won game 3, and they did win game 4. This series should at least be 2-2, or at least Philly could easily be up 3-1. And I feel like the play of Simmons and some of the coaching decisions, I mean, Brad Stevens has outcoached Brett Brown. He's coached circles around him. And the dumb moves that have come out. I mean, what the hell was going on the other night when Ben Simmons dribbles up the court? Brett Brown is he's dribbling up to the side where you see guys call the timeout so they can get their play. And he's like, no, just go. And he's like, I don't know what's going on. And then they just turn the ball over. At that point, when your point guard is confused, you just got to go, okay, timeout. Let's reset. Let's come up with something. Let's draw something up. And he lets them play, and they make just an awful turnover. It's just been one coaching mistake after another. And on the other side, Boston, who's undermanned, they're just executing. They're listening. You can tell that they come out with a plan, a game plan, and they're just out executing them, Eric. So I don't know what's going to happen in game 5. Boston's been really good at home. They're undefeated in these playoffs. And again, if the Sixers don't put their foot on the gas, they're going to be done. And then we're going to be like, what happened? A team that has all this talent basically got outplayed by a team that's without their 2 best players, and Jaylen Brown's limping around on one leg.
Yeah, it's been really remarkable to see how well Boston has played, and they just, sort of like what we said about Utah in the first round, they just find a way to play really well as a team.
Both are well coached, though, too.
They're very well coached.
Snyder, Brad Stevens, 2 of the best coaches in the league.
I couldn't have been more irritated with Philly's coaching when they were up by almost 20 in before the first half of, was that game 2?
Yeah.
And they just let Boston make a huge 18-4 run, and they go to halftime with a 4-point lead when they were 4 minutes before that, up by 18. And I'm like, you can't do that in the playoffs. You have to break that streak that's going. You have to stop the run.
You got to use your timeouts. We saw it ridiculous. Tuesday night, what Alvin Gentry had to do. He had to just keep burning timeouts in the third quarter, but he was trying to keep the Pelicans alive because he knew what was coming. We've talked about it before, though, it's just the way Golden State can come at you. And Alvin Gentry saw it coming, and he kept trying to stave off those runs. Brett Brown just stands there with his hands in his pocket. You can't take timeouts with you. You don't have a Phil Jackson-led Bulls or Lakers team. You don't have Golden State. You don't have a veteran team where you just let them play through it. You've got young guys. When they cut that lead to 12, I was screaming at the TV, and my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, timeout, get to timeout. Stop this run. They've cut you to 12. The crowd's behind it. They've got multiple guys involved. You got to get a timeout. And they just let them keep coming. Then you look, and the lead's gone. And at that point, you could see Philly was like, uh-oh.
Well, we're going to talk about this draft day mistake for a long time, many years to come. I think this draft day situation is going to end up on that all-time list. I mean, we're talking about a list that includes things like Kobe not ending up in Charlotte, Dirk, going to Dallas rather than Milwaukee. I mean, we just mentioned his name, Scottie Pippen. He could have been a Seattle Supersonic. There are historical collapses on draft day that ended up being some of the dumbest moves in retrospect. So this Fultz thing is definitely going to end up on the all-time list, I do believe. Now, Justin, one quick question. It's going to be the Cavs against either the Celtics or the Sixers. are LeBron James and the Cavaliers going to go to the finals? And to wrap up segment one, who are they going to play? Because now we know it's Golden State against Houston. I think ultimately there's not a lot to break down there because we knew that was going to happen. And so just give me your prediction. Will it be Golden State or Houston coming out of that series? Because I think that it has potential to be epic from a back-and-forth, high-scoring game. It's like the first one to score 120 probably wins every game. What's going to happen in the NBA Finals at this point?
Well, I think the Cavs are definitely coming out of the East. No matter who wins between Philly and Boston, who comes out of that, it's a plus matchup for the Cavs. We already saw the Cavs last year dominate the Celtics. They had no answer for them. LeBron basically shot 90% from the floor. It felt like everything he shot went in. They just didn't have an answer for him. And he's destroyed Philly every time he plays them. So he's going to have a huge series anyways. As far as the Western Conference, I still give it to the Warriors. I see Warriors in, I want to say 5, but I'll say 6 just because the way Houston shoots the basketball. I think they could just simply outshoot them for 2 games, especially that first game when they get game 1. I could easily see game 1 or 2 in Houston. They just shoot the lights out of the gym and split there. But Golden State's just cranking on all cylinders now with Steph back. And I just think even watching Houston play a very wounded Utah Jazz team, even in a closeout game, it's not like they blew them out. I mean, they really needed Donovan Mitchell to get hurt before they took off. Rubio was hurt. Dante Exum went down. So Utah was definitely not 100% going into that. And it's not like the Rockets just blew them out and swept them in 4 like what the Cavs did to Toronto. I mean, they lost the game. They were close in a couple others. So, again, we've talked about it. If Harden's not on, if Chris Paul is not on, where's the offense coming from? I mean, you're going to really depend on PJ Tucker to hit 6 threes? Is that going to be your offense? I don't think that's the best strategy. But again, we've seen teams just shoot. The second round has been way worse than the first round. A lot more blowouts because you're starting to see the separation in shooting. And we talk about if one team gets hot and hits, 15, 16 threes and close to 50%, the other team's at 7 or 8. The team with more threes is simply going to win. So I that's why I see Houston getting 1 or 2, but I think Golden State will ultimately just out-execute them, just have more offense. I don't know who on Houston's going to be able to stop Kevin Durant. That's sort of the problem. So, Golden State doesn't probably have an answer for Harden. I'm sure they're probably going to put Clay on him, which means Chris Paul will get a plus matchup with Curry. But again, who's going to stop Kevin Durant? And then you've got Draymond Green as another matchup that I'm sure Tucker will be on him. So you're going to put Ariza on Durant. I still think that's plus for Durant. So I think just the matchups, the way they're going to shake out, I don't think Houston can keep pace with Golden State for 7 games and get 4 wins versus them.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's going to be an epic series in terms of points and offense. But I would also say Golden State in 6, and I'm almost leaning toward Golden State in 5, just because I think their home court is so powerful. Now, I realize the home court advantage goes to Houston being the 1 seed, but I think Golden State steals 1 in Houston in the first 2 games. Then I think they go to Golden State, and their arena is unbelievable. And I think they win both in Golden State and go up 3-1. So then it's just a factor of how does it shake out when you get to the back and forth. But ultimately, I think the Golden State Warriors are going to be in the NBA Finals again. I do think they will play the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Who would you rather Cavs play before we end segment 1? Who would you rather see them play out of the West?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that because I was going to ask you a question that we can't answer tonight because we don't have time, but we need to get into it probably in a couple weeks. I'd rather the Cavaliers play Golden State, and it's for a really selfish reason.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, very selfish reason, and it's because I think Golden State will beat them like a rug. And I know that sounds really funny coming from a LeBron fan that I think he's going to go to the finals and get destroyed again. But I think, and this is a topic for a different show now, because we need to debate this. And talking about my friend Tony again, he totally disagrees with me on this. I think Golden State is on the verge of dynasty level. And so I think it actually helps LeBron James's legacy if he goes to the finals. Justin's laughing at me across the table in the studio. Goes to the finals against Golden State and loses to that super team once again, because then all of the LeBron James homers like me can grab our pillows and our blankets and go to our cry rooms and say, yeah, but he would have won more if he didn't have to face the Golden State Warriors for the last 4 years. That works in my favor, Justin.
That's the strangest defensive mechanism I think I've ever seen. Maybe we need to implement drug testing here at Talkback. I don't know. I didn't think you'd say that. I thought you'd say Houston because they gave him the best chance. So I'm shocked I thought you were going to say Golden State because if LeBron beats him, it would somehow elevate him. I didn't think you'd go the other way, so that's a surprise.
Oh my gosh. If the Cavs beat Golden State, yes, that would absolutely elevate him because then he's beaten the dynasty team for the last, 2 out of 4 years. But the problem is, Justin, the reason I didn't answer it for Houston is because Houston would beat the Cavs too. It doesn't matter. Whether it's Houston or Golden State, one of those two teams is going to be the NBA champion